My enthusiasm for the Marvel Cinematic Universe started to wane when the Disney Plus shows started. It felt like we shifted to a quantity over quality mindset. The MCU had quantity before, with 3 or so movies a year, but with the occasional misstep, they seemed to know what they were doing. As I grew to hate just about everything that came out, my vitriol even traveling back in time and alerting me Far From Home wasn't as good as I thought it was when I first saw it, I got to a place where I just didn't need to watch these things anymore. But I'm a dog returning to my vomit, so I do these fix videos suggesting what I would have done would be an improvement over what we got, and I ended up getting more invested in my fanfiction than the original properties. Not hard to do with the state of the MCU, but still, I realized I wanted to do one big video keeping track of all my changes I made and how it would look when you're air quotes watching it all in order. If you want more details on any of this stuff, go watch the individual videos. I'm biased, but I think they're pretty good. But this is more me looking at how to unify all of this stuff into a cohesive phase thematically and with plot stuff. We're starting with Far From Home, even though that was the end of Phase 3. I always thought where a phase begins and ends was incredibly arbitrary. Phase 1 ended with the Avengers getting together. Phase 3 should have ended with the Avengers falling apart, and Far From Home would kick off the next phase. I suggested in my Homecoming video the Prowler would steal a genetically enhanced spider that bites his nephew off screen. Miles survives the snap and is working with the government in the 5-year gap. The bad guys would be the Scorpion, since you set him up in Homecoming, and Chameleon. You can still do the post-credit scenes setting up Skrulls and Spider-Man being framed for murder and his identity being revealed to the world. WandaVision was a mixed bag of intentions. I still see people say the show had Wanda accepting her loss, and there are some scenes that hint at that, but there are just as many that hint that she's willing to go down a dark path to find her kids. I like the idea of turning Wanda into more of a villain. I've been saying since Endgame that if the MCU wants to survive, they need to do something different. Endgame was big end-of-the-world stakes. I would say at least all of Phase 4 should be equivalent to Phase 1, small, more personal stories setting up the new status quo of this world. And since it would be very difficult to outdo the epicness of Thanos, don't even try. You can say the stakes are now all the universes, but what then? Eventually, if you keep trying to make a bigger and bigger splash, there's going to be no more water left in the pool. What's great about turning Wanda into a villain is we came to know her over 2 or 3 films as a hero, so if done correctly, like maybe she isn't deliberately traumatizing an entire town just for poos and giggles, it would be a huge deal to see her turning to the dark side, for an understandable reason, but still the dark side. I don't know how much mileage you could get out of Wanda as a villain, maybe as much as you got out of her as a hero. The big thing here would be to get our story straight. Was Agatha manipulating everything, or was Wanda deliberately tormenting these people? Did Wanda repent and go into hiding, or is she just warming up? I say just warming up, but pick one. Falcon and Winter Soldier, most of what happened would still happen, just in a different order. Falcon is unsure about using the shield. Isaiah Bradley talks to him about his own experiences as a black super soldier. That informs Sam's decision to give up the shield. In the opening scene, when Sam is helping the army fight Batroc the Leaper, John Walker was there shooting at fleeing enemies. When the army gives the shield to that guy, it makes sense Sam would be more concerned. Bucky gets involved because the Hydra scientist who designed the new super soldier serums was someone he bodyguarded when he was under Hydra's control, and he feels responsible, much like how Sam feels responsible for John Walker being the new Cap. At the end, John Walker took the serum, Elaine gives him a job working for the Dark Avengers. Loki, no Sylvie, no mystery villain branching the timeline, no multiverse falling apart, just a small-scale time cop series with 2012 Loki realizing he needs to be less of a world conqueror when he finds out his family is dead and it's his fault. Kang would be the bad guy trying to tweak this reality so it matches one he came from, and he can be reunited with someone who is almost but not exactly his girlfriend. Each episode would be Loki and Arthur Zarko trying to right one of Kang's wrongs. At the end, you find out, but Loki doesn't, Arthur Zarko is a misdirect, and it's Immortus, either from another timeline, or it's this Kang but older, and he's acting against himself for some reason. Black Widow, I've seen a lot of people suggest this one could have been removed and you wouldn't notice. It introduces Yelena, and it would be weird if she just showed up in Hawkeye or Secret Invasion and said she's Natasha's long-lost sister. I guess it's still forced, but it works a little better when we see her interactions with Nat. My fix is to lean away from the family drama the movie wanted to focus on, but simultaneously only wanted to devote one scene to, and focus on the spy-fi thriller genre. Shang-Chi, didn't think this one was that bad. I suggested getting rid of Shang's sister and having Shang reluctantly take control of the Ten Rings so it doesn't fall into the wrong hands, and he'll try to rehabilitate it. Good luck. Not technically MCU, but I said the Sony movies could, with a little work, easily fit in the MCU. Marvel made deals with Fox before, don't know why they couldn't quietly say the Sony movies take place in this world, as long as they don't make too many ripples. Let There Be Carnage takes place here. It's a trash movie, but most of my changes were cosmetic. Shriek doesn't die. She's recruited by Elaine from Seinfeld to be part of her team. Eternals, make this a Disney Plus series with each episode focusing on one of the Eternals. Play more with the parallels of the Eternals and the Deviants as both being robots and whether they fight their program programming or follow it. Also, Ikaris doesn't kill himself. He has to live with his actions, try to atone for them, and in future appearances tries to be the hero he always thought he was. My take on Endgame is that the Avengers disbanded. Not on purpose, just the force of personalities of Cap and Tony is what kept things together. And with one dead and the other might as well be, the team went their separate ways. Thor's in space doing space things, so is Carol Danvers. The only original recipe Avengers still around are Hulk and Hawkeye. So we're not getting an Avengers movie, but we would get a low-budget Avengers Academy series. Professor Hulk believes this world needs heroes, and with various untrained rookies showing up in the aftermath of the blip, in my pitch for introducing mutants into the MCU, I said they are less than half of 1% of those who are blipped, and they have powers thanks to the radiation from the stones. This would be where the idea really gets cemented. He sets up a facility to train these heroes, and hopefully, the next extinction level threat, they will be there to stop it. Low budget charm, we won't be seeing the big world-ending crises Professor Hulk is talking about. You focus on the character interactions, with a little superheroing in each episode. Use Brooklyn Nine-Nine as your model, about that much character stuff to cop stuff ratio. Your students would be Squirrel Girl, Speedball, and say a prototype Xandarian armor that bequeaths the wearer with enhanced speed, strength, stamina, etc. somehow made it to Earth in the fallout of the destruction of the Nova Corps, and you have a Nova on the team. Someone who claims to be Atlantean royalty is here too. This would be a nice tease for the Namor thing I talked about, which would come out later. Throw in some of the Avengers The Initiative characters from the mid-2000s to round out the team. While Hulk is the one who founded the school, he's busy elsewhere, so Miles Morales, who got somewhat injured in my Far From Home video, he would be the leader/teacher. Hydra can still be hanging around, and one of the students is a spy, and your main character, maybe Squirrel Girl, is trying to investigate who it could be. For future seasons in later phases, you could add Eli Bradley if his grandfather gave him an emergency blood transfusion, maybe Cassie Lang and Miss Marvel after she's introduced in her own series. But to start off, you don't want too many A-listers, and I think some of these guys might overshadow the lesser knowns a little bit if you introduce them right off the bat. Phase 3 had 11 films, while Phase 4 only had 7, but if you count all the projects in Phase 4, there were 15. That's a lot. One of the problems I had following Endgame was the glut of content. If you slow down, you have less of a risk of burning people out. You can still do the stuff you're gonna do, just pace yourself. Since I moved Far From Home to this phase, that's 10 movies in Phase 3, so we'll have 9 in this one. All the movies and shows I haven't covered yet would be moved to Phase 5. I'm not counting Let There Be Carnage as one of the 9, it's still its own thing, even though I'll be setting up Shriek for use in the MCU later on. We end this phase with the introduction of the Fantastic Four in the MCU. The reason I chose to have Phase 4 in here is because I'm trying to mirror Phase 1. That phase ends with the formation of Earth's first superhero team, and now that the Avengers are gone, we would see their spiritual successors starting up. My idea was that this space station Nick Fury was on in Far From Home was part of an idea to protect Earth from future alien invasions. These 4 will be working on one of the stations. They're on it when the blip happens. The radiation from the blip interacts with the radiation from the negative zone, which Reed harnessed to power the stations. That's how they got their powers, but they went their separate ways. Years later, they team up to fight Kang and become a team by the end. And that would be my ideal Phase 4. Much more scaled down. No multiverse falling apart, only 4 projects after Endgame. You didn't have Thanos with the stones just 4 films after Iron Man. You had to build up to it. I think the MCU is on a course to burn itself out in trying to top something so untoppable, and they didn't have to go down that route. If they went back to the smaller scale stuff we had at the beginning, while still building on what came before, they could keep this gravy train running indefinitely. Thematically, this phase would mostly be about where do these characters go from the brink of universal destruction. Whether intentionally or not, we see a lot of characters trying to define their role in a world without Avengers. Some of them might become villains in the public eye, some of them become villains for real, some somehow become heroes. Again, building on what came before while also building something new. I've got some more ideas for later stuff, so check that out when you see it. In the meantime, have a great rest of your day. Catch you later.